Hey guys, welcome back to Walking with Jesus Daily. We are in our 30th day. That is almost a completed month, or is a completed month. Day 16 of our chronological order. We are still preparing to get going. It'll be next week that we actually get going. I hope you guys are ready for that. It's going to be a big week, a good prep time, and then we're going to go straight into allowing God to kind of basically tear us apart so that we can figure out who we actually are underneath everything that we have been. So let's dig into today's lesson. This is our first mashup, which is awesome. Holly does the mashups for us. She does a great job with that. This is Jesus Returns to Nazareth. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to read both versions and then a mashup. So what is a mashup? A mashup is where we take two different writers, so Matthew and Luke in this instance, and we blend together the two versions of the story to make one story. We don't leave out a single word in either one unless they're the same, obviously, then we're still not leaving it out, but not a word is left out, just it's inserted in the right places so that Matthew and Luke combined for one story. Or sometimes it's three writers, sometimes it's four, so you got our hands full. But in this instance it's only two. So I'm going to read the first one, I'm going to read Matthew, then I'm going to read Luke, and then we'll read the mashup. So it says, "But when Herod died, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt," again, right, "saying, Rise, take the child and his mother and go to the land of Israel," because they're in Egypt, "for those who sought the child's life are dead." And he rose and took the child and his mother and went to the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was reigning over Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. And being warned in a dream, he withdrew to the district of Galilee. And he went and lived in a city called Nazareth, so that what was spoken by the prophet might be fulfilled, that he would be called a Nazarene. Now this is not the same as a Nazarite. All right, Luke's version. "And when they had performed everything according to the law of the Lord, they returned into Galilee to their own town of Nazareth. And the child grew and became strong, filled with wisdom, and the favor of God was upon him." So now we read the mashup version, and we will kind of do this together. Now, what we do know is when you read through this in the writing, it's a little bit different, because you'll see blue as Matthew and green as Luke, and then you'll see that in the mashup. What is bold is what was different or added in, and then what is not bold was not, or was the same. So you'll see when you read it. So let's read the mashup and put this whole thing together. "But when Herod died, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt." So we get the information once again. Herod was the one that was seeking to kill him. We just read about Herod going and killing everyone 2 and under, every male 2 and under in Bethlehem and the region around. So he just basically went in a fit of rage after the wise men did not return. And you think, well, what if the wise men had returned? Maybe then Herod would have just gone after Jesus and not killed all those babies. But this is the way that it was prophesied. This is the way that it worked out. We can sit and think about and wonder why a lot of things happen, but we know that everything happens. Everything that happens it works out for good for those who love God, and we're just hopeful that people, even in tragedy, love God so they can see the good that comes from it. But Herod dies, and an angel of the Lord appears in a dream to Joseph again. So Joseph is familiar with this. This is the third time. And it says that he's in Egypt. So, of course, that's where he is right now. They fled there in the middle of the night. And this is what the angel said: "Rise, take the child and his mother, and go to the land of Israel." So return to Israel from where they were in Egypt. And again, it's kind of weird. Because the angel says, "Rise." as in the middle of a night, because he's dreaming, so we can kind of put those two together. I don't know if there was haste or a hurry in this, but he just says, rise, get up, get Jesus, get Mary, go to Israel. It says, for those who stopped the child's life are dead. And you wonder if how important this was, but of course this was to fulfill prophecy that he would call him out of Egypt, right? And then it says, and when they had performed everything according to the law of the Lord, he rose and took the child and his mother. So what's the law of the Lord? We had the circumcision, and we had the purification and the offering, and the dedication as being the firstborn male to break the womb. So all those things took place, and he went, and Jesus and Joseph and Mary went to the land of Israel from Egypt. Now, it says, but when he heard that Archelaus was reigning over Judea in place of his father Herod, which I guess he was equally evil like Herod was, it says that he got afraid to go there. He became afraid to go there. So it says that he was warned in a dream, and because he was warned in a dream, again, the fourth time, they returned into the district of Galilee instead. And he went and lived in a city called Nazareth, their hometown where this all began. And so that was spoken by the prophet might be fulfilled, that he would be called a Nazarene. So we get a lot of things fulfilled in prophecy here. I would imagine that Joseph and Mary wanted to return to Bethlehem. That was our best bet. That's where they fled from. That's where they'd kind of established themselves as a young married couple with Jesus. It doesn't say they had other kids at this point, because it just talks about Jesus and Mary going, but it's really hard to tell. So it says, and the child grew and became strong, filled with wisdom, and the favor of God was upon him. It kind of reads like John the Baptist in that same way, right? That he grew, becomes strong, filled with wisdom, and the favor of God was upon him. So that's what we get out of his childhood, basically. We get that he moved around a lot, and that he grew and was filled with wisdom, and the favor of God was upon him. It's interesting that it doesn't talk about the Spirit, him being filled with the Spirit. Obviously his DNA is Spirit, but it talks about that with John, which is a little bit different. I thought that was interesting. So what do we get from this? Really what we're getting today is a bunch of prophecy fulfilled. We get that he's called out of Nazareth. We get that he's called out of Egypt. And he didn't return to Bethlehem, but he returned to Nazareth instead. And that's kind of a big deal as well. So it's like them coming home. So this vision started when Mary was visited by Gabriel in Nazareth as a virgin. Joseph as well. They went to Bethlehem for a census. They ended up staying there. They left in the middle of the night, fled to Egypt. They stayed there until they were warned that they could return. And then when they returned, they were going back to Bethlehem, but they were warned again, and instead went to Nazareth. And that is where Jesus grew up, in the city of Nazareth with Mary and Joseph. They ended up having brothers and sisters. And we read and learn more about that later, but they were not divine brothers and sisters. I wonder what it was like to grow up with Jesus. I've always wondered things like that, especially since he's filled with wisdom, and he grew up to be strong, and he grew up in the favor of God. This is what we can know from what we have read, that Joseph as a father had to be constantly listening. He had to be ready at any point to go. Jesus, being the Son of God, and Mary being his wife, both had to be obedient and hear what Joseph had to say. If Joseph was the one that was being warned and he was the one leading his family, then sometimes that takes a lot. I know it's difficult to move. I've moved several times, and just getting up and going is hard to do, especially on a family. But we're glad that this took place, and we're glad that, a comment was brought up in class about there had been silence for nearly 400 years, and now all of a sudden it's not. So we'll talk about more of this in the meat section, but this is the first mashup we've done. I think it worked out pretty good, and we'll see you guys in the meat.